Let's talk about a common misconception, and that's the idea that marketing refers to things like advertising, social media, trade shows, or email campaigns, and that brand is all about your story, a logo, graphic design, style guides, taglines, and slogans, and things like that. The truth is, effective marketing and a strong brand extend far beyond paid media campaigns and beautifully crafted creative assets. They touch every facet of your organization, from how your customer service team handles complaints, to the way your product is manufactured and performs, to even things like the details of your warranty policy. The more a company weaves marketing principles into every last detail of its operations, the stronger its brand will become in the minds of its customers. So let's define the terms clearly before moving on. Marketing, at its core, is the act of communicating and delivering value to a chosen audience, shaping the perception of your offering so that people decide to buy from you and remain loyal. Yes, ad campaigns, promotions, and creative designs are all part of this, but they're just one of the channels through which a larger commitment is expressed. A brand, on the other hand, is the collective perception, how people feel and think about your company based on every interaction they have with you. While a logo or color palette can signal aspects of your brand identity, the true essence of a brand emerges from the daily experiences customers have when dealing with your product or your employees. If those experiences are positive and consistent, your brand reputation strengthens. If they're negative or contradictory, trust erodes. So the issue is that businesses frequently isolate their marketing efforts from the rest of their operations, as though marketing exists in a silo. But in practice, marketing is intertwined with everything: product development, customer service, HR, store layouts, return policies, and even corporate culture, just to name a few. For instance, you can't claim to be customer-centric in your ads if your support team doesn't really understand your product or acts indifferently towards your customers. You can't talk about sustainability while your packaging and manufacturing choices obviously contradict that message. Discrepancies between outward messaging and internal reality cause brand damage that no well-crafted or executed campaign can ever repair. When we think of a brand that thrives, it's often because the entire organization has aligned around a coherent value proposition, and the marketing messages reflect a truth that customers can verify. So if you say, for instance, we deliver, the fastest and easier, user experience, and your checkout process, your app design, and your customer service truly embody simplicity and speed, people's experience will confirm that claim. Over time, that consistency builds a robust brand identity that fosters word-of-mouth recommendations from loyal, lifetime customers. On the other hand, if your marketing materials talk about speed, but your shipping frequently misses deadlines, that brand story unravels. No matter how captivating your social media posts or ads might be, the underlying mismatch pushes people away. This highlights why marketing is not just about persuading people to buy, but ensuring that they keep returning and advocating on your behalf on an ongoing basis. Every operational detail, your shipping times, the warmth of your staff, your product reliability, all of that essentially serves a form of marketing, because it shapes perception and influences whether people trust or doubt your company. So let's talk through a more tangible example. Picture a technology company that positions itself for, as an innovator, for instance. They produce beautifully designed ads with, futuristic visuals, host conferences about leading edge technology, and craft a brand identity that signals, invention and forward thinking. This approach catches a lot of initial attention. However, if their actual product rarely gets updated, if bug fixes are slow, if their support line is unresponsive, the brand promise of innovation quickly collapses. You end up with customers who feel misled. They see your promotional content, sign on with high expectations, and then encounter a lackluster product that's all promise and no substance. And that gap between marketing claims and actual experiences undercuts brand equity. The next time the company tries to launch a new product, it'll face skepticism from a market that now doubts if it can back up all of its talk. On the other hand, if that same technology company truly invests in R&D, consistently refines its software or devices, and trains its support staff and team to handle advanced technical queries, the marketing message of cutting-edge solutions becomes totally believable, not just because you say it, but because users genuinely experience that innovation. The user experience then reinforces your ads, your blog posts, or even your event presentations. People come to trust that your brand stands for actual advancements rather than just trendy visuals. So this pattern repeats itself in industries from retail to hospitality to software to manufacturing. The brand is shaped by every operational decision. How quickly do you reply to your customer emails? How do you handle returns or complaints? Does your store layout or website design reflect your stated priorities? Whether that's luxury, efficiency, or environmental consciousness. Are your employees consistent in how they greet customers, handle questions, or fulfill requests? Each of these touch points might seem minor on its own, but collectively, they determine whether your brand narrative holds up under the scrutiny. It's also important to understand that the fundamental concept of marketing has remained the same for almost a century, while the tools and channels have rapidly evolved. In the past, newspapers, radio, and billboard ads were the main vehicles. Today, we have social media, search engine ads, influencer partnerships, AI-driven data analysis, and beyond. But no matter how sophisticated your ad targeting or how innovative your promotional tactic is, the goal to strive for is communicating your value effectively. Then, more importantly, delivering on it thoroughly. If you fail to deliver, people are going to see through even the most polished campaign. Don't forget, marketing can't be a Band-Aid slapped on top of a flawed product or a poor customer experience. Another angle to consider is your company's internal culture. Organizations that cultivate a brand from the inside out often excel in marketing because their employees genuinely believe in the mission of the company. If you advertise you're about exceptional service, but your internal culture is disorganized, stressful, or stingy with employee resources, that discord, is going to show up in how staff interacts with customers. On the other hand, a team that feels valued and supported is more likely to represent the brand positively. So there's a hidden dimension to marketing that involves your HR practices, leadership style, and day-to-day management. If the internal culture contradicts your marketing message, eventually word's going to get out or employee morale is going to dip, leading to poor service. And that's the intersection of brand marketing and employee engagement. Now, let's move toward actionable steps to ensure that marketing and branding are fully integrated into your business rather than just confined to your ads. So first, map out the entire customer journey from initial point of contact of awareness through purchase, usage, potential issues, and repeat engagement. List each and every step or touch point. Then compare how you want people to feel at each stage against what you currently provide. If you want them to feel welcome, does your website or physical location reflect that? If you want them to find your process effortless, do your policies, forms, or user interface embody that simplicity? Document any gaps. Second, bring your operational teams into the marketing conversation. If your marketing says that you're premium, your procurement or manufacturing can't compromise on materials and cut costs. If your marketing says you're customer-centric, your service team should have enough authority to resolve problems quickly without making customers jump through hoops. By aligning each of these departments with the stated brand values, you avoid a situation where one side of the business undermines the brand story. Third, assess how your product or service quality aligns with your marketing promises. If you're promoting top quality or craftsmanship, do you truly use top-tier components or skilled labor? If you're claiming affordability and convenience, are you passing hidden fees onto your customers or complicating the checkout process? Marketing can highlight your best features, but if those features are an exaggeration, disappointed buyers are going to voice their dissatisfaction, and often publicly. A coherent brand promise emerges when the actual product or service can stand on its own merits without any hype. Fourth, take a look at your post-sale support. Many companies invest heavily on the front-end funnel, like ads, landing pages, lead capture, but then they neglect everything that happens once the sale is made. Warranty handling, returns, user onboarding, and loyalty programs, they all form part of your marketing narrative. If people have a positive experience during the crucial after-sale phase, they're more inclined to recommend you or buy again. If it's a struggle, they're going to feel buyer's remorse. So treat post-sale interactions not as an afterthought, but as a valuable extension of your marketing that can convert one-time buyers into long-term advocates. Fifth, unify your internal and external messaging. If you claim authenticity in your outward communications, that authenticity needs to permeate how leadership speaks to employees, how teams collaborate, and how decisions are made. If you emphasize creativity, do you empower staff to propose innovative ideas, or is your environment rigid and bureaucratic? Customers can sense when a brand's public personality is not mirrored internally. The brand might use cheerful language in ads, but if employees are overworked and negative behind the scenes, it's going to eventually seep into customer interactions. And that's why brand identity must be consistent with real organizational behavior. Now, let's consider how this approach can transform your marketing efficacy. When your entire business model is aligned with the brand promise, your ad campaigns resonate more deeply. You're not stretching or manufacturing claims. You're simply publicizing what people can already experience. In fact, you're often going to see word of mouth become more potent, reducing your need for heavy advertising spend to maintain growth. People will share their positive experiences. They're going to effectively do some of the marketing for you because they trust that your brand identity is genuine. This synergy also future-proofs your business against changes in marketing trends or platforms. If your brand is grounded in strong operational values and a consistent experience, you can adapt to new social media channels or emerging digital tactics without losing your core identity. The brand remains stable and the essence of your marketing remains stable, and only the methods that you use to reach people evolve over time. This is far more resilient than a model that relies heavily on promotional gimmicks to patch up underlying service or product issues. Let's look at another scenario to illustrate this. Suppose you run a cosmetics brand that talks about being, all natural and cruelty-free. And that's a compelling message, and you might create gorgeous visual campaigns, showcasing organic ingredients and empathetic values. But let's say your supply chain includes hidden chemicals, or if your partner facilities conduct animal testing, your entire marketing story is built on a really shaky foundation. Once consumers discover the contradiction, which they often do on social media or influencer exposés, your brand collapses from the inside out. Now you're scrambling to do damage control, but the damage has already been done. By contrast, if you have genuinely ensured every step aligns with your cruelty-free, all-natural claim, from sourcing raw materials, responsibly to verifying third-party audits, your marketing resonates as truthful. Consumers grow loyal because they trust you're not just using a trendy label, you're living the values behind that label. Another reason this broad perspective on marketing is so crucial is the immediacy of modern communication. Negative experiences or brand missteps can go viral in a matter of seconds or hours. If a customer's complaint about misleading packaging or rude staff hits the internet, your meticulously crafted ad campaign is overshadowed by bad press. Meanwhile, if someone shares their positive experience about your customer service, going above and beyond, that story carries organic weight that no paid media can replicate. Marketing in that sense is a shared narrative you build with your customers. You put forth a brand promise, but customers validate or challenge it through direct experiences and then broadcast their impressions. That's why each operational detail, no matter how small, either supports or undermines your public marketing narrative. You might wonder, doesn't this make marketing complicated if I have to coordinate with every department? Well, yeah, certainly. It's more involved than just designing ads, but the payoff is a stronger, more coherent brand that resonates with genuine impact. Businesses that operate with a siloed marketing department often end up with mixed messages or operational misalignments. Meanwhile, organizations that view marketing as an enterprise-wide commitment create a uniform customer experience from their marketing materials all the way down to product delivery and after-sales service. Here's one more example. Let's say there's a global electronics brand known for their user-friendly simplicity. They don't just talk about simplicity in their ads. They incorporate it into how they package their devices, how they design the user interface, how they structure their support forums, their quick start instructions, even how their staff treat you when you call in. That consistency of simple and intuitive runs through everything that they do, so their marketing campaigns have a strong foundation to stand on. Consumers rarely doubt the brand's claim because each product iteration confirms it. That is the essence of weaving brand identity into every action, thereby making your marketing message credible and compelling. One actionable approach to reinforcing your brand is to explicitly define your core values and the brand promise at the leadership level, then hold each department accountable for reflecting those values in their processes. If ease of use is a core value, operations might reduce packaging complexity. Your developers might streamline the user interface, and your customer service might train staff to handle queries swiftly with minimal red tape. You can then carry this consistency into your marketing campaigns, showcasing genuine ease of use rather than an exaggerated claim that's not supported internally. In the end, the hallmark of successful marketing is not just attracting attention in the short run, but fostering enduring trust and loyalty. That trust emerges when people see that your brand messages are more than hype or surface level claims, that they're born out of the reality of how you truly operate. This synergy between message and action is what elevates a brand perception and cements a company's reputation, often for decades. At times, the emphasis on new channels or novel tactics can distract from this overarching, requirement for consistency. There's a constant temptation to jump on the latest social media platform or try a new ad technology or new message, hoping that the novelty alone will drive results. While experimentation can be valuable, it can't replace a cohesive brand framework. If your brand promise is murky or contradicts everyday reality, those new channels won't yield sustained benefits. On the other hand, if your brand story is truly genuine and integrated deeply into your operations, experimenting with fresh tactics or platforms can amplify that message to broader audiences. As we close out this exploration of what marketing and brand truly mean, consider a systematic review of your entire operation. Ask yourself, if I took away the logo, the color scheme, the slogans, would my product experience, support processes, and company behavior still convey the same identity I proclaim in my ads? If the answer is no, pinpoint the gaps and fix them. That might mean adjusting how you train staff, rewriting policies, refining your product design, or even rethinking your leadership style. It's a more challenging route by far than simply upping your ad budget, but it's also far more sustainable and effective and building a reputation that stands out in a crowded market. Ultimately, the strength of your marketing depends on the consistency of your brand identity across all of your activities. Advertising or creative campaigns can attract interest, but only the actual experience, solidifies or undermines that interest. So as channels evolve, the constant that remains is human nature. People want reliable, authentic, and valuable interactions. If your business delivers those consistently, marketing becomes a natural, organic extension of what you already do correctly. You don't have to force a narrative. You let your real operations speak for themselves, and your promotional efforts simply tell that story to the wider world. That's the key takeaway here. Marketing isn't confined to promotional materials or paid media. It's every decision that shapes how your brand engages with your audience. Recognize this. Structure your operations to align with your stated brand values, and you're going to discover that your marketing resonates more powerfully, fosters deeper loyalty, and stands the test of time, regardless of how the channels and tactics change in the years ahead.